The glass shattered on the porch steps, shards scattering like the secrets I'd just exposed. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. "What did you just say?" Aunt Karen whispered, her face draining of color as 20 pairs of eyes turned to watch us. The reunion banner fluttered above her head. "Welcome, Anderson family," in her perfect calligraphy now seeming like the cruelest joke. I said, "Funny you should mention blood relatives only." "Mom." I held up my phone, the DNA test results glowing on the screen. The weight of 3 decades of lies hung in the summer air between us. I'd been an Anderson my entire life. At least that's what I thought. Adopted at birth by James and Maria, the most loving parents anyone could ask for. They never hid my adoption. It was just another part of our family story, like Dad's terrible jokes or Mom's award-winning apple pie. Being adopted never made me feel less of an Anderson. At least not until 3 months ago when the invitations for Grandpa Anderson's 90th birthday reunion arrived. The entire extended family would gather at his sprawling Vermont farmhouse for a week-long celebration. Everyone was excited except Aunt Karen. As Grandpa's oldest daughter and self-appointed guardian of the Anderson legacy, she'd taken charge of planning. Her emails became increasingly controlling, filled with references to our heritage and the Anderson bloodline. I didn't think much of it until that family dinner when she showed Mom the guest list. "This is a gathering for true Andersons only," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Blood relatives." The table went silent. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. "What exactly are you saying, Karen?" Mom's voice had that dangerous edge I rarely heard. Karen smoothed her designer blouse, unruffled. "This is about family heritage. Celebrating the Anderson bloodline. Michelle is lovely, of course, but she's not really an Anderson. Not really an Anderson." The words hit like a physical blow. 28 years of family holidays, shared memories, love and belonging, all dismissed because I didn't share their DNA. "That's ridiculous," Dad started, but Karen cut him off. "James, be reasonable. This isn't about feelings. It's about preserving our family's history. Michelle would feel out of place." "The only one making Michelle feel out of place is you," Mom snapped, her hands trembling as she gripped her napkin. But Karen wasn't finished. "I've already discussed it with the reunion committee. We all agree, blood relatives only. Oh, it's simpler." The committee consisted of Karen's daughter, Jessica, and 2 cousins who'd never dared disagree with her. I'd grown up with Jessica, shared clothes and secrets through our teenage years. Now she couldn't even meet my eyes across the table. I stood abruptly, chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Don't worry about it, Dad. I wouldn't want to taint the precious Anderson bloodline with my adopted presence." "Michelle." Mom reached for my hand, but I was already walking out, blinking back tears that I refused to let Karen see. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something about Karen's insistence seemed excessive, even for her, like she was afraid. I kept thinking about the family photos Mom had been organizing for Grandpa's birthday. One in particular haunted me, a faded Polaroid from a family picnic the year before I was adopted. The next morning, I called in as sick to my architectural firm and drove to my parents' house. The boxes of old photos were still spread across the dining room table. I found the picnic photo easily. Summer of 1994, 3 months before my birth. Everyone looked relaxed and happy except Karen. She stood at the edge of the frame, one hand pressed against her stomach, face turned away. She wore a loose sundress, unusual for someone who favored tailored clothes. According to the date stamp, this was taken just 6 months before she married Uncle Steve, in what Mom always called a rushed ceremony. My heart hammered against my ribs. I'd been born in January 1995. Karen married Steve in December 1994. The timing. But no, it couldn't be. Could it? I pulled out more photos, arranging them in chronological order. There was a 6-month gap where Karen appeared in no family pictures at all, from July 1994 to January 1995. Over the next hours, I researched hospital records from that time. Finally, I found what I was looking for. My birth record from St. Mary's Hospital, January 15th, 1995. My birth mother was listed as Jane Doe, common in closed adoptions. But there was something else. A nurse's note, probably misfiled during digitization. Patient requested complete confidentiality. Family connection to hospital board member K.A. noted. K.A. Point. Karen Anderson. My hands trembled as I ordered a DNA test. 2 days later, as I swabbed my cheek, I thought about Karen's insistence on blood relatives only, about all the years of subtle digs and careful distance, the way she'd flinch when someone commented on how my smile looked just like James's. 6 weeks later, my phone pinged. Your DNA results are ready. The results loaded slowly, each section revealing another piece of an impossible puzzle. First, the ethnic breakdown, predominantly Northern European, just like the Andersons. Then, health markers showing the same predisposition to high blood pressure that ran in the Anderson family. But it was the relative matches that made my heart stop. Close family match, Jessica Anderson, first cousin. Estimated relationship, half-sibling. Below that, close family match, James Anderson, uncle. Estimated relationship, father. My father wasn't my uncle. He was my father, biologically, which meant Karen was my mother. The room spun. I grabbed my phone and called Mom. Not my adoptive mom, my real mom, the only mom who'd ever mattered. Michelle? She answered on the first ring. What's wrong? I need you and Dad to come over now and bring that photo album from 1994. They arrived 20 minutes later. Without a word, I turned my laptop to face them. Oh God, Mom whispered, sinking onto my couch. Dad's face went pale, the color draining from his cheeks as if someone had pulled the plug. How long have you known? I asked, my voice barely steady. We didn't, Dad said quickly. Not for certain. We suspected. Karen never confirmed it. Mom took my hand, her fingers cool against my skin. When we were chosen for adoption, we were told it was closed. But the social worker hinted at a family connection. Then, at the hospital, I saw Karen in the maternity ward. She begged us not to tell anyone, said it would destroy her life, her chances with Steve. Dad continued. We agreed because we wanted you so badly. And you were afraid if you didn't, she'd change her mind. I finished. The pieces were falling into place. Karen's distance, her insistence on keeping me separate, her obsession with bloodlines. Every calculated slight over the years suddenly made sense. We should have told you. Mom was crying now, but as the years passed, it seemed kinder not to. You were ours, completely ours. The how didn't matter. I looked at the reunion invitation still sitting on my coffee table. The Anderson family grand reunion was starting in 3 days. Karen's carefully orchestrated celebration of family history was about to become something very different. I'm going, I announced. Michelle. Mom started, concern etching lines around her eyes. Mom, I'm tired of hiding who I am, of being made to feel less than. Karen wants to celebrate Anderson blood? Fine, let's celebrate it. Which is how I found myself on Grandpa's porch, watching Karen's carefully maintained composure crumble as I revealed her decades-old secret. The evening sun cast long shadows across the lawn where generations of Andersons mingled, unaware of the bomb I was about to drop. You had no right, she hissed, fingers digging into my arm. That information was private. Private? I laughed, pulling away from her grasp. Like how you spent my entire life treating me like a dirty secret, making me feel like I didn't belong in my own family. Keep your voice down, she pleaded, looking around frantically, her perfect makeup unable to hide the fear in her eyes. Why? Isn't this what the reunion is about? Celebrating Anderson family history? Well, here's a piece of history for everyone. 28 years ago, Karen Anderson had a baby. Instead of acknowledging her child, she gave it up in a closed adoption. But here's the twist. She arranged for her own brother to adopt the baby, then spent the next 3 decades pretending that child was a stranger. The porch had gone completely silent. Even the birds seemed to pause their evening songs. Jessica stood frozen halfway down the steps, her face a mask of shock, one hand covering her mouth. "Is this true?" The question came from Grandpa Anderson, who had wheeled himself onto the porch during my speech. His voice, though softer with age, still commanded attention. "Karen, is she yours?" Karen's carefully maintained composure cracked entirely. Tears streaked her makeup as she struggled to form words. "Daddy, I was young, unmarried. It would have ruined everything with Steve." "So you gave your baby to James and Maria?" Grandpa's voice was quiet, but carried across the silence. "And then spent years making that same child feel unwelcome in her own family." "I did what I had to do," Karen cried, her voice breaking. "I gave her a good home, responsible parents. What more was I supposed to do?" "Love her," Jessica said suddenly. All heads turned to my half-sister. Her eyes, so like mine, were filled with tears. "You were supposed to love her, Mom. Like you love me? Instead, you made me treat my own sister like an outsider." The next few hours were chaos. Family members took sides. Arguments erupted in corners of Grandpa's sprawling farmhouse. Uncle Steve stormed off shouting about decades of lies. His car sprayed gravel as he sped down the driveway. But something else happened, too. Jessica hugged me, really hugged me for the first time in years. "I always wanted a sister." She whispered against my hair. "I think I always knew, somewhere deep down." Grandpa insisted on hearing every detail of my life, proudly declaring that my architectural talent must come from his side of the family. His weathered hand held mine tightly, as if making up for lost time. Karen left early, refusing to participate in the spectacle. But her departure felt like a weight lifting. For the first time, I could just be an Anderson. No qualifiers, no explanations needed. Later that evening, as fireflies danced across the farmhouse lawn and crickets sang in the tall grass, Grandpa called everyone together. "Family," he began, his voice strong despite his age, "is not about keeping secrets. It's not about blood or DNA or who has the right to belong. Family is about love. Messy, complicated, sometimes painful love." He turned to me, his eyes clear and bright. "Michelle, you've been an Anderson since the day James and Maria brought you home. Not because of whose blood you carry, but because of the love you've both given and received. I'm sorry it took us this long to say it properly." 1 year has passed since that reunion. Karen still won't speak to me, but I'm okay with that. The truth cost her more than she ever imagined. Her marriage, her carefully constructed image, the respect of her daughter. Jessica and I meet weekly making up for lost time. She's pregnant now. I'm going to be an aunt. Mom and Dad are still Mom and Dad. Finding out they're my biological aunt and uncle hasn't changed our relationship. If anything, it's stronger for having the truth in the open. Last week I found a package on my doorstep. Inside was an old jewelry box and a note in Grandpa's shaky handwriting. "This belonged to your grandmother. She would have wanted her granddaughter to have it. Not because of blood, but because of the heart you've shown in forgiving this family's mistakes. Love, Grandpa." The necklace inside was the same one Karen had pointedly not given me all those Christmases ago when she'd presented identical ones to all the female blood relatives. Now it sits in my jewelry box, not as a symbol of bloodlines or heritage, but as a reminder that family is what we make it. Sometimes the truth hurts, sometimes it heals, and sometimes, like a DNA test that reveals both roots and wings, it sets us free to become who we were always meant to be. Not just blood relatives, but true family.